Hey guys, so we're going to continue on with our reading today. So last time that we left our friend Santiago, he was in a really bad position. So if you remember, he came across this man on a horse in the desert, and there was this huge gust of wind, and now he's being questioned by this man that he met in the desert, and he has his sword on his forehead, asking him how did he know about the omen of the hawks. So I'm going to pick up where I left off. We were right here with the stranger continued to hold. So go ahead and follow along with me on your PDFs, okay? So the stranger continued to hold the sword at the boy's forehead. Why did you read the flight of the birds? Okay. Oh, too far. Okay. I read only what the birds wanted to tell me. They wanted to save the oasis. Tomorrow all of you will die because there are more men at the oasis than you have. The sword remained where it was. Who are you to change what Allah has willed? Allah created the armies, and He also created the hawks. Allah taught me the language of the birds. Everything has been written by the same hand, the boy said, remembering the camel driver's words. The stranger withdrew the sword from the boy's forehead, and the boy felt immensely relieved, but he still couldn't flee. So flee means to run away. Be careful with your prognostications, said the stranger. When something is written, there is no way to change it. All I saw was an army, said the boy. I didn't see the outcome of the battle. The stranger seemed satisfied with the answer, but he kept the sword in his hand. What is a stranger doing in a strange land? I am following my personal legend. It's not something you would understand. The stranger placed his sword in its scabbard, and the boy relaxed. I had to test your courage, the stranger said. Courage is the quality most essential to understanding the language of the world. The boy was surprised. The stranger was speaking of things that very few people knew about. You must not let up, even after having come so far, he continued. You must love the desert, but never trust it completely, because the desert tests all men. It challenges every step and kills those who have become distracted. What he said reminded the boy of the old king. If the warriors come here, and your head is still on your shoulders at sunset, come and find me, said the stranger. The same hand that had brandished the sword now held a whip. The horse reared again, raising a cloud of dust. Where do you live? Shouted the boy, as the horseman rode away. The hand with the whip pointed to the south. The boy had met the alchemist. Okay, so this is a really big deal, you guys. We met a new character, the character that the Englishmen had been looking for all this time, and the person that Santiago had heard so much about. So he just met the alchemist. Next morning, there were 2,000 armed men scattered throughout the palm trees at Al-Foyam. Before the sun had reached its high point, 500 tribesmen appeared on the horizon. The mounted troops entered the oasis from the north. It appeared to be a peaceful expedition, but they all carried arms hidden in their robes. When they reached the white tent at the center of Al-Foyam, they withdrew their smaters, that must be an Arabic weapon, and rifles, and they attacked an empty tent. The men of the oasis surrounded the horsemen from the desert, and within half an hour, all but one of the intruders was dead. The children had been kept at the other side of the grove of palm trees and saw nothing of what had happened. The women had remained in their tents, praying for the safekeeping of their husbands, and saw nothing of the battle either. Were it not for the bodies there on the ground, it would have appeared to be a normal day at the oasis. The only tribesman spared was the commander of the battalion. That afternoon he was brought before the tribal chieftains, who asked him why he had violated the tradition. The commander said that his men had been starving and thirsty, exhausted from many days of battle, and had decided to take the oasis so as to be able to return to the war. The tribal chieftain said that he felt sorry for the tribesmen, but that the tradition was sacred. He condemned the commander to death without honor. Rather than being killed by a blade or a bullet, he was hanged from a dead palm tree, where his body twisted in the desert wind. The tribal chieftain called for the boy and presented him with 50 pieces of gold. He repeated his story about Joseph of Egypt and asked the boy to become the counselor of the oasis. So our friend Santiago, he's gone from a shepherd to a homeless person when he ended up in Morocco. Then he worked at a crystal shop, ended up on a caravan, and now he's the counselor of this oasis. And he came so close to being killed. Okay, let's continue on. So when the sun had set and the first stars made their appearance, the boy started to walk to the south. He eventually sighted a single tent, and a group of Arabs passing by told the boy that it was a place inhabited by genies. But the boy sat down and waited. Not until the moon was high did the alchemist ride into view. He carried 2 dead hawks over his shoulder. "I am here," the boy said. "You shouldn't be here," the alchemist answered. "Or is it your personal legend that brings you here?" "With the wars between the tribes, it's impossible to cross the desert, so I have come here." The alchemist dismounted from his horse and signaled that the boy should enter the tent with him. It was a tent like many at the oasis. The boy looked around for the ovens and other apparatus used in alchemy, but saw none. There were only some books in a pile, a small cooking stove, and the carpets covered with mysterious designs. "Sit down, and we'll have something to drink and eat these hawks," said the alchemist. The boy suspected that they were the same hawks that they had seen on the day before, but he said nothing. The alchemist lighted the fire, and soon a delicious aroma filled the tent. It was better than the scent of the hookahs. "Why did you want to see me?" the boy asked. "Because of the omens," the alchemist answered. "The wind told me that you would be coming, and that you would need help." "It's not I the wind spoke about. It's the other foreigner, the Englishman. He's the one that's looking for you." "He has other things to do first. But he's on the right track. He has begun to try to understand the desert." "And what about me?" "When a person really desires something, all the universe conspires to help that person to realize his dream," said the alchemist, echoing the words of the old king. The boy understood. Another person was there to help him towards his personal legend. "So you are going to instruct me?" "No. You already know all you need to know. I am only going to point you in the direction of your treasure." "But there's a tribal war," the boy reiterated. "I know what's happening in the desert." "I've already found my treasure. I have a camel, I have my money from the crystal shop, and I have 50 gold pieces. In my own country I would be a rich man." "But none of that is from the pyramids," said the alchemist. "I also have Fatima. She is a treasure greater than anything else I have won." "She wasn't found at the pyramids either." They ate in silence. The alchemist opened a bottle and poured a red liquid into the boy's cup. It was the most delicious wine he had ever tasted. "Isn't wine prohibited here?" the boy asked. "It's not what enters men's mouths that's evil," said the alchemist. "It's what comes out of their mouths that is." The alchemist was a bit daunting, but as the boy drank the wine, he relaxed. After they finished eating, they sat outside the tent, under a moon so brilliant that it made the stars pale. "Drink and enjoy yourself," said the alchemist, noticing that the boy was feeling happier. "Rest well tonight, as if you were a warrior preparing for combat. Remember that wherever your heart is, there you will find your treasure. You've got to find the treasure so that everything you have learned along the way can make sense. Tomorrow sell your camel and buy a horse. Camels are treacherous. They walk thousands of paces and never seem to tire. Then suddenly kneel and die. But horses tire bit by bit. You always know how much you can ask of them, and when it is that they are about to die." The following night the boy appeared at the alchemist's tent with a horse. The alchemist was ready, and he mounted his own steed and placed the falcon on his left shoulder. He said to the boy, "Show me where there is life out in the desert. Only those who can see such signs of life are able to find treasure." They began to ride out over the sands, with the moon lighting their way. "I don't know if I'll be able to find life in the desert," the boy thought. "I don't know the desert that well yet." He wanted to say so to the alchemist, but he was afraid of the man. They reached the rocky place where the boy had seen the hawks in the sky, but now there was only silence and wind. "I don't know how to find life in the desert," the boy said. "I know that there is life here, but I don't know where to look." "Life attracts life," the alchemist answered. And then the boy understood. He loosened the reins on his horse, who galloped forward over the rocks and sand. The alchemist followed as the boy's horse ran for almost half an hour. They could no longer see the palms of the oasis, only the gigantic moon above them, and its silver reflections from the stones of the desert. Suddenly, for no apparent reason, the boy's horse began to slow. "There's life here," the boy said to the alchemist. "I don't know the language of the desert, but my horse knows the language of life." They dismounted, and the alchemist said nothing. Advancing slowly, they searched among the stones. The alchemist stopped abruptly and bent to the ground. There was a hole there among the stones. The alchemist put his hand into the hole, and then his entire arm up to his shoulder. Something was moving there, and the alchemist's eyes, the boy could see only his eyes squinted with the effort. His arm seemed to be battling with whatever was in that hole. Then, with a motion that startled the boy, he withdrew his arm and leaped to his feet. In his hand he grasped a snake by the tail. The boy leapt as well, but away from the alchemist. The snake fought frantically, making hissing sounds that shattered the silence of the desert. It was a cobra, whose venom could kill a person in minutes. "Watch out for his venom," the boy said. But even though the alchemist had put his hand in the hole, and had surely already been bitten, his expression was calm. "The alchemist is 200 years old," the Englishman had told him. "He must know how to deal with the snakes of the desert." The boy watched as his companion went to his horse and withdrew a scimitar. With its blade he drew a circle in the sand, and then he placed the snake within it. The serpent relaxed immediately. "Not to worry," said the alchemist. "He won't leave the circle. You found life in the desert, the omen that I needed." Why was that so important? Because the pyramids are surrounded by the desert. The boy didn't want to talk about the pyramids. His heart was heavy, and he had been melancholy since the previous night. To continue his search for the treasure meant that he had to abandon Fatima. "I'm going to guide you across the desert," the alchemist said. "I want to stay at the oasis. I've found Fatima, and as far as I'm concerned, she's worth more than treasure." "Fatima's a woman of the desert," said the alchemist. "She knows that men have to go away in order to return. And she already has her treasure. It's you. Now she expects that you will find what it is you're looking for." So we're going to stop there for today, and then I want you guys to go ahead and work on the Google Doc that I have on Google Classroom, and I hope to hear from you guys soon. Bye!